Well, greetings and salutations, everybody. I hope you're having a great evening. Welcome to this special return of Movie Club. My name is John Campea, and what Movie Club really simply is, it's just a simple, there's nothing to it. It's just a simple kind of live stream that we do where we pick one movie and just talk about that movie. For the night. I and you, me and thee, are going to sit around here tonight and talk about an absolute, I don't like to throw the word masterpiece around. I use it very rarely, but I think it's fair to say that The Martian is a science fiction masterpiece. It's just an incredible film, and I'm so glad that we're going to be talking about it tonight, especially considering that the author of The Martian, the book, has another movie coming out in just a couple of weeks, of course, which is Project Hail Mary, which is not, in fact, a sequel to this movie. Some people kind of thought it was. It is not. But still, we're going to talk about it. So this is the way it's going to go. I'm going to talk about the film and my kind of thoughts on it and my favorite parts, some questionable things about it, all that kind of stuff. And then I'm going to take your comments and questions. Now, just so you know, I'm just going to take a lot of comments and questions just from the live chat. But I'm not going to take every question from live chat. I'm going to cherry pick questions from live chat. If you have a thought, observation, comment, theory, or a question for it, and you want to make sure it gets read as long as it's appropriate, go ahead and use the super chat feature and send it in. And that will ensure that it gets read here on the show. All right. With all that said, guys, let's not waste any time. Let's just get right into it. Talk about The Martian, which I sat down and rewatched last night, by the way. I decided to sit down, rewatch The Martian last night, and it's better than I remembered. And there's even a few things I noticed watching it last night that I didn't remember. I'm sure I noticed before, but I didn't remember. And you'll know what I'm talking. One of the things you'll know that I'm talking about is I haven't seen The Martian since Ted Lasso came out. Now, you should know what I'm going to bring up a little bit later, but still, let's put it aside. Now, look, on its surface, when you're talking about The Martian, if you were to describe the movie to me and say, and I asked you, hey, what's The Martian about? And you said, it's a movie about this guy who gets left behind and he has to wait around until they come pick him up. That's The Martian. A guy who got accidentally left behind and then had to wait around until somebody came to pick him up. Now, if you describe the movie to me in that way, I probably wouldn't be interested in the film. There's no villain in the film. You know what? That's one of the things, for those of you who know anything about Project Hail Mary, that's one of the very first things that kind of jumps out at me about like Weir and his stuff is that in neither story is there really a villain per se. Every movie needs a conflict. It can be man against self, man against man, man against nature or environment. And both of these stories are basically, if you really break them down, they're really kind of man versus environment, man versus nature in many ways. And it's difficult to make a story that's really super compelling on that level, but certain films pull it off. I think of Tom Hanks's Castaway, or this one, The Martian, right? Now, here's the interesting thing. Going into The Martian, you would forgive me if when it was first coming out, even though the movie looked good, you'll forgive me that at the time, back in 2015, when this movie was coming out, I was, I'll say it, I was a little bit skeptical about it. And the main reason I was a little bit skeptical about The Martian was because Ridley Scott was directing it. And I know that sounds weird to say. Ridley Scott is a Hall of Fame director, first ballot Hall of Famer, no doubt. But if we go back and look at like the previous handful of years, like 7-8 years before The Martian, I was kind of at a spot where I'm like, Ridley Scott isn't the same Ridley Scott anymore, because let's look at his filmography prior to The Martian. Right before The Martian, in 2014, he had Exodus, Gods and Kings, a movie that I didn't think was terrible, but wasn't all that good. I never saw the TV movie The Vatican, but I heard that wasn't very good. He did The Counselor, which was straight up trash. Now, I know Prometheus has its fans. There are people who absolutely love Prometheus. I respect that, but I really didn't like Prometheus at all. And before that, he had one of his reunions with Maximus from Gladiator, him and Russell Crowe. They made Robin Hood, a movie I was very excited about, but Robin Hood wasn't very good. He did Body of Lies, which is another one that I did not think was all that bad, also was not all that good. And then you get down to 2007 and you got American Gangster. That's great. I loved American Gangster. But look, we had like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 or 6 movies in a row that Ridley Scott did that I was just not into. And I thought, man, that Ridley Scott who made Gladiator isn't around anymore. And to be fair, he hasn't made a lot of great films since The Martian either. But that's why I went into The Martian initially a little bit skeptical, a little bit doubtful, and it absolutely blew me away. I could not believe how immediately engaged I was. And we'll talk about that in a second too, about how, like, right from the start, the movie captures your imagination, gets you drawn into the dilemma, and you're just hooked in it right up until the last moment when he's teaching in the classroom and saying, and you then just solve the next problem, then the next problem. And if you solve enough problems, you get to go home. It's just right up until that moment, like you're just hooked into this movie. But I'll tell you what, watching the movie again for the first time in a few years last night, right? I was dumbfounded by the cast. Because top to bottom, the cast are all all-stars, right? The cast are all all-stars. So Matt Damon obviously led it. Jessica Chastain, who is one of my favorite actresses, absolutely one of my favorite actresses in the world. I first fell in love with Jessica Chastain when she did that movie, The Help. Remember that? That's one of my, honestly, that's low-key one of my favorite movies of the past 20 years is The Help. I love that movie. Anyway, Kristen Wiig, that whole scene where they're in the boardroom and all the guys are talking about Lord of the Rings references. She's like, I hate all of you. Like, it's just like one of the best lines in it. She's terrific in it. Jeff Daniels, I mean, just crushes it in this. I mean, he's just so smooth and in control, and he's just great in it. Michael Pena, who, by the way, why is Michael Pena not around more? Michael Pena's just genius. I mean, he's only a botanist. I'd like to report that the Mav is still standing, or whatever the line was. He was great. Sean Bean. Okay. You need to take a second and talk about a moment with Sean Bean. I forgot all about this scene, and I don't know why, but there's this scene, the same scene that I was just talking about with Kristen Wiig, where they're in this boardroom, and the Council of Elrond comes up when they talk about where they decide what to do with the One Ring and all that kind of stuff. And I'm just laughing my ass off. And Anne's looking at me and said, what's so funny? I'm like, Boromir is sitting in this boardroom. It is a gift. One does not simply walk into more. It's like they're talking about the Council of Elrond while a guy from the Council of Elrond is literally sitting in the scene. And I was just laughing. I don't know why I forgot about how great that is. Madeline says, one does not simply survive on Mars. And I was just laughing myself. But again, the performance Sean Bean gives in this is still like, even that thing, I shouldn't have to ask him. I'm the one in charge of this. I'm the mission commander. Anyway, he was great in it. Another person, Kate Mara. I love Kate Mara. I really first took notice of Kate Mara in House of Cards on Netflix. I've loved her ever since. You know what? I don't care. I'll say it. The movie wasn't very good, but I even liked her as Sue Storm. I did. I don't think she's as good as the current Sue Storm we have, but I even liked her as Sue Storm. She's amazing. Her sister is amazing as well. Love them. Bucky. Sebastian Stan in there. The only guy whose name isn't really on the marquee is Axel Hennie, who's in Sisu, but like he's a good actor, but he's the only one who's not like a major league all-star name. One of my favorite actors in the world, Chiwetel Ejiofor. And right below him, Benedict Wong. This is the other thing that killed me. Because I don't know if I had watched The Martian. I already said I hadn't watched The Martian since Ted Lasso. I'm not 100% sure that I've seen The Martian since watching Doctor Strange. And there's this scene where Chiwetel Ejiofor's character, Vincent, he travels to Pasadena to go to the JPL, the Jet Propulsion Labs. And of course, Benedict Wong runs the labs. And the two of them are in a golf cart. And it just kind of struck me, Mordo and Wong are in a golf cart, just zipping along. And I just remember laughing a lot at that. And by the way, speaking of, I said Michael Pena. It's like, where the hell, why isn't he in more stuff? Mackenzie Davis. I love Mackenzie Davis. I love her. And ever since she did that Terminator movie, it feels like she's just kind of disappeared. I mean, she hasn't literally just disappeared or anything like that. Oh, by the way, Dankin, 100% right. Red belt. So good. Anyway, Mackenzie Davis just kind of, for all intents, like until that Terminator movie came out, I felt like she was this rising star. And I think she's a terrific actress. I think she does a great job in this movie. I don't know why she's not around more. I'm just saying that. Then, of course, about halfway through the movie, out of nowhere comes Childish Gambino, who is great in it. By the way, that scene where he goes to Nassau and he's in the meeting with Kristen Wiig and Jeff Daniels, and he like takes the pen out of his pocket. He's like, he's making spaceship sounds. Okay, then we go back to Earth. Like, it's like very much his character from Community. But again, he was great in it. He was great. And then the one that made me sit up like the meme, you know, the Once Upon a Time in Hollywood meme with Leonardo DiCaprio, where he sits forward in his chair and going like that. My moment of that, like I said, I have not watched this movie since Ted Lasso came out. And I'm watching it, and the guy controller in the chair and behind the computer, it's Nick Mohammed from Ted Lasso. Nate, a character I wanted to die so badly. Anyway, it was Nate, and I totally forgot about that. So I'm sitting here watching this movie, and it's like, it's just, the movie's just a who's who. And I just couldn't get over, and every one of them, from the flight crew to the Nassau crew, obviously then all the way up to Matt Damon. Every performance, every role, so killed it, so delivered it. I mean, it's just a staggering movie just in terms of the performances of the whole cast. Masterfully directed. And, you know, the movie starts. This is one of the things that really got to me, like, especially watching it again last night. Within about 7 minutes, you are into the main meat of the movie. Like a lot of movies, and some very, very, very good movies. I'm not saying doing this is necessarily a bad thing. There are some great movies that do this. Some movies, you don't literally get into the meat of the story, or you don't get to the main narrative for like 20 minutes, 25 minutes. You know, a lot of things is just setting things up and blah, blah. And then the movie starts. You're 20 minutes in, the main narrative starts. This movie, masterfully, right away, they're on Mars. Right away, uh-oh, there's some weather coming. Uh-oh, we got to get to the escape vessel. Uh-oh, Mark's gone. And I feel like it was before the 10-minute mark I could be wrong about that, but it just felt like before even the 10-minute mark, I'm looking up at the screen, realizing it started. He's now abandoned on Mars. We are into the main narrative minutes into the film. But here's the really great thing about it is in just those few minutes, this is how you can tell when you're dealing with a storyteller and a script that is really on its A game. You can do more with less time, because I feel those first few minutes of The Martian adequately set up everything that we needed to know about the movie. We understood the mission. We understood what was happening. We got all the not only the dynamics of the crew as a whole, but even some of the individual dynamics. Like right away, we got the banter going back and forth when they're on the communicators between Michael Pena and Matt Damon. Like we understand the nature of their relationship. We already recognize the bond between the crew. And all of that was accomplished in a very, very short amount of time. Some lesser movies will take 20 minutes, 30 minutes to feel like they need that much time to set it all up. But they accomplished so much so quickly, and then were able to dive right into the movie, and we never felt unprepared. Like by the time that ship takes off and Mark gets left behind, I feel like we as the audience were fully prepared and we were ready for it, and we're ready to get into okay, we got all the foundation we need, we're ready to get going, and it rolled into it right away. By the way, let me just take a second. I just had this picture up, but let me bring it up again. I don't know if I can name 3 movies. I don't know if I can name 3 Matt Damon movies where he gives a better performance than he does in this one. And a lot of the movie, he's acting by himself. Like the vast majority of the movie, it's just him. It's only him on screen. He has nobody to interact with. And it's just him giving, again, very reminiscent of Tom Hanks in Castaway, and he just kills it. You feel Mark's personality, this eternal optimism, but like there's this scene in the movie, guys, where the potato farm, hub gets blown out, and he has this moment. Like this is the great thing about his performance in the movie. He's this constant positive energy, constant, I'm going to just solve this next problem, constant blah, blah, blah. But there are 2 particular moments. The one moment is when the potato farm blows and he breaks momentarily, but he breaks. The other one is when the relief ship that they launch without going through its safety checks blows up. And there's this great moment in the movie. It's very isolated, but I think that's part of what made it so powerful, where Matt Damon is sitting just on a rock and he's talking to or sending a message to the mission commander and telling her, like, I need you to do me a favor. If I die here, I need you to go and talk to my parents. It sucks. It's a terrible job to do, and that's why I'm asking you. And when you go and talk to my parents, it's going to be terrible for them, but tell them I loved my job. Tell them I loved my job and that I died doing something that mattered. That whole thing, it's these momentary breaks from the one dimension of him that was very positive, very forward moving, but just peppering in those little breaks constantly showed his humanity. And I think just says a lot about his performance. Now, I want to talk about Jeff Daniels for a second in this movie, because I feel like Jeff Daniels as the head of NASA and this constant even keel. Remember how I was just talking about Matt Damon and his performance, always positive, next problem. But then they give you these little moments to show an extra dimension to the depth of the character. When the potato farm blows and when the supply ship explodes. Jeff Daniels, same thing. He's this constant. He never gets riled up. He says, all right, let's work the problem. Let's do this. We're going to do this. He's very even and steady. But then he finds something out and he's like, he breaks for a second, right? That calm steadiness. He has this enthusiasm about him. And it's just these little moments highlighted by the performances that really just kind of give depth to the characters, gives depth to the story. And I just thought was remarkable on that stuff. You know, one of my favorite things about The Martian, and it's one of the things that I'm looking forward to as well, as we are heading into Project Hail Mary. One of the things I love about this and Project Hail Mary so much is that it elevates learning. In a world that we live in right now, where there are certain people who try to vilify education, who try to vilify or debase learning, that try to vilify intelligence, who try to vilify critical thinking, who try to demote the idea of, you know, we just live in this world right now where intelligence, education, critical thinking are being denounced by certain people in this world. One of the things that I love about this movie is that it elevates the idea of learning. It elevates the idea of intelligence. It elevates the notion of education. And I love it. You know what the best thing about it when it comes to this movie and when it comes to Project Hail Mary? Mark is nothing special. Grace in Project Hail Mary is really nothing special. You don't have to be born different. These are just guys who learned. They got educated. They just learned. They weren't born smarter than anybody else. They just took the time and thought it was valuable in life to learn, to amass knowledge, to understand how the world around us works. Anybody can do it. See, that's the great thing about both this movie and Project Hail Mary. They never try to propose that like, oh, you got to be born special in order to do what Mark does. You got to be born unique in order to do what Grace does. Weir and both their individual books never do anything but suggest the idea, no, these are just two guys who valued the idea of learning about the world in which they live and amassing knowledge, and how those things, knowledge, intelligence, education, these are the things that ultimately save the day. You don't get a lot of movies or stories that do that today. And I thought that was great. And by the way, you know, it does so without ever suggesting that if you didn't go to an Ivy League school, there's something wrong with you. No, like one of the great things about Riley, or Grace, I should say, in like Project Hail Mary, is the whole notion that, like, look, you at whatever point in your life you were at, learn. I mean, kids are the best way to start. So he teaches young kids and like, here, you can learn these things. Every kid can, every adult can. So I love that they elevate the idea of education without ever making any sort of suggestion that there's something wrong with you if you don't have that. Like, I love that. And one of the things, and the whole notion about how he just sits down when realizes he's abandoned, he understands immediately they probably think he's dead. He's in a hostile environment. And he's like, all right, I got to science the shit out of this. And he's just one problem. Okay, I need water. How do I get water? Okay, I need to grow food. How do I grow food? I need to fertilize soil. How do I fertilize soil? Literally go out and take bags of crap and pour it in the dirt. I just love how every step along the way, he's like figuring out the problems. He's figuring it out and moving along. And that's the whole movie. He's hit with a problem and has to figure it out. He's hit with the next challenge and has to figure a way out, and just on and on and on. until, like he says in his final thing, because that's the great thing about his lecture at the end of the movie, is that he sums up the whole movie in that one speech. When things go wrong, and they will go wrong, you can either just accept you're going to die, or you can get to work and figure out the problem. Then figure out the next problem, then figure out the next problem. And if you figure out enough problems, you get to go home. And that, in a nutshell, is the entire movie. Right? That's the whole movie of The Martian, is Mark being hit with a problem, figures it out. The people at NASA being faced with a problem, they figure it out. The crew on the ship, on the Hermes, they come into a problem. They got to figure it out. Every step, the whole story is about people encountering problems and figuring out solutions and moving forward to the next step. And Ridley Scott, the story itself, and then Ridley Scott as the director, who does the monumentally difficult task of taking that script and making it actually flow on screen, does a masterful job of making every single one of those problems that the characters face engaging. Like, I don't know how many times throughout the movie, some of you might have heard me say this before, that I love movies. Speaking of Matt Damon, Bourne Identity is a good example of this. I love it when movies hit me with something was like, how the hell does this happen? Or how the hell do you get out of this? Like, Bourne Identity starts with just a shipping boat in the middle of the ocean, finding a guy just floating randomly in the middle of the ocean. I love that. But like all these different problems that NASA, that Mark, that the commander and the crew all face, and like every time it's like, you're dead. Like, how do you fix this? What can you do about this? And they find a way from a story perspective and by the way, one of the great hooks in the movie, and I think they're going to do this a lot in Project Hail Mary too, is how do you convey on screen what in the book is a lot of internal monologue, right? It's just the internal narration of the main character. Well, they did it by him logging everything in video diaries. So even though Matt Damon is there, he's not just not talking the whole time, he's actually communicating to devices. So I think that's the same thing that's going to be happening as well in Project Hail Mary. As a matter of fact, I know that because we kind of see that a little bit in the trailers for Project Hail Mary. So that's all good too. Let's see. What's another thing that really stood out to me and that I love so much? Again, just the problem solving along the way, all that kind of stuff. Oh man, that moment that I touched on this earlier, but the moment that the potato farm blows, I mean, I just remember my heart sinking and like, oh my God, like, like not the second time I watched it or last night when I watched it, because I know how he gets out of it. But I mean, the first time I saw the movie, I remember that happened. I'm like, oh no, like this is it. He's done. And yet they figured a way. And by the way, I don't have a picture of it up and I wish I did, but we see Matt Damon take his shirt off in the one scene and like he's buff. The reason they did that is not just to show off Matt Damon, but is to then juxtapose that later in the movie when he takes his shirt off and he's this frail, skinny little guy, which is what will happen to you when you only get to eat like one potato every couple of days. I mean, it's just unbelievable. That another great moment of the movie when they finally tell Mark that they have not for months haven't told the crew that he was still alive. And he like starts F. Love that. But the moment in the movie that nearly makes me cry, there's this great moment. It's near the end when he does his Iron Man thing. He goes, I'm going to poke a hole in my hand and I'm going to fly like Iron Man, right? He does that whole thing. The commander catches him and they bring him into the ship, right? And you're watching that and it's like, oh, they got him. They got him. And it feels good, right? It feels good. But this is the weird thing about this scene. So we already saw him do his Iron Man thing. The commander catches him. They get the rope. Sebastian Stan pulls them in. We already know that, right? We know he's been rescued. We know this already. And yet, 5 seconds later, they cut back to NASA and Earth. And then something we already know, they announce over the communicator. I think they say Houston or base, whatever they say, we got him. 5 seconds earlier, we already saw them get him. I already knew in my head that they got him. And it felt good and all that kind of stuff. But I can't explain it. But when they cut back to Earth and the message comes over the radio, we got him. I got emotional. And again, the stupid thing is I just watched them get him and I didn't get emotional. But hearing them communicate back to home, we got him, that got me emotional. And that got me a little bit worked up. And that felt really good. And it's just one of the great things about the whole movie. There's also a really neat little kind of underlying message of hope when like China comes in to join with NASA to work together to try to bring, like, it became not just a story about NASA trying to go get their guy. It became a global thing. We need to bring him home. That, I don't know if a lot of you guys remember, but in the original movie posters for The Martian, the text on it was literally bring him home. Like there was a picture of Matt Damon and the literal text on it was bring him home. And it's just kind of by the end of it, without them going too overt about it, it was the clear underlying message of like, this was something that brought the whole world together. And I kind of like that too. There's a little bit of that in Project Hail Mary. Actually, there's not a little bit. There's a lot of that in Project Hail Mary as well. But I mean, just that little bit of that was a really uplifting, moving, spiritually significant sort of thing to me. And, you know, again, listen, we've seen movies where, you know, a captain goes, you know, this is going to be dangerous. I'm not going to ask any of you to do it. And of course, the whole crew goes, yeah, let's go do it. But that scene in this movie, when the crew finds out they're on their way home, the crew finds out that Mark is still alive and they understand NASA doesn't want them to go back to get him. And they run through the potential consequences. And they all, except for Michael Pena, all of them do think about it for a second because it means all this time in space, an extra year and 3/4 away from our families. All that kind of, so I like the fact that it did show them process it, right? Like Michael Pena's character was just like, nah, screw it, let's go get him. But all the other ones of them were just like, okay, let's think about this for a second. If anything goes wrong, we die. And if we die, Mark dies. We could face this. It's more time away from my family. The one dude had like 6 kids that he was going to now spend another year and 3/4 away from. And yet, you know, when it comes down to it, it was like, that's our guy. That's our guy. Let's go get him. And they all decide that they're just going to go get him. And it was just such, oh God, you know, this is just one of those movies, guys, that I could probably just sit here and talk all night about. It's just brilliantly done. By the way, the music was perfect when they used it. The performances were all great. The story was moving. The messaging was fantastic. And just truly one of the great movies in the last 20 years. Truly one of the great movies of the last 20 years. And it only makes me look forward to Project Hail Mary even more. Like, even more. Anyway, I've been going on for over a half hour talking about The Martian. But for now, let's go over and see what you guys have to say about The Martian. There was a super chat that came in from Joey Young, and I'll read that off, and then I'll just take questions from you guys in the live chat. And Joey Young is saying, things in the world are harsh, but at the end of the movie, the whole world, I was just talking about this. Things in the world are harsh, but at the end of the movie, the whole world comes together to root for his rescue, which was touching. Great movie. Yeah. And you see that, like, it wasn't just that people were interested in the story. People were gathering in the streets to watch the giant telescreens together and cheer and celebrate together. And yeah, man, I totally love it. Totally love it. It's just so good on that level. All right, guys, listen. Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to take now questions or thoughts or observations from you guys. You see what I just put in the live chat? It's all in capital letters, question : If you have a comment or a theory or an observation or a question about The Martian that you want me to address, just type in capital letters, question : first. That way I know you're asking me a question and not just talking amongst yourselves or anything like that. And I will read off a couple here on the show. So anyway, let's see. Where are we at? Let's bring this one. This one comes to us from Connor, who's writing, which movie do you think would benefit or lose more if you swap Matt Damon and Ryan Gosling in these films? Well, first of all, it's impossible to say about Project Hail Mary because we haven't seen it yet. I mean, I think Ryan Gosling's going to be great in it, but I haven't seen it yet. Look, there are many great actors in the world. You could swap out Matt Damon for somebody else, and they could do a worse job, or they could do just as good of a job, or they could do better. The reality is we'll never know. All I know is Matt Damon got the role, and now it was up to him to deliver. And he delivered. Again, I'm sure there are other actors who also would have delivered, but maybe wouldn't have. So we'll never really know. Again, we absolutely don't know about the Ryan Gosling thing because we haven't seen it yet. But yeah, I mean, who's to say? All I know is that Matt Damon got the role and he frickin' killed it. All right, King Daddy Go writes, do you think The Martian and Project Hail Mary have similar themes and tones? Yes. Yeah, I really do. It's hard. It's weird to say, but I find there are a lot of similarities between The Martian and Project Hail Mary. Some very big, obvious similarities. And yet they don't in the least feel like the same movie. Like both of them are about a guy kind of on his own, science nerd, trying to science a problem to save the day. So there are many similar themes in this movie, but I never ever thought watching The Martian or listening to Project Hail Mary, they never felt at all like the same movie, even though they do have a lot of similarities. All right, let's see. Jake Clark is saying, Good Will Hunting over The Martian for Damon performance. I don't know. Like, Damon is great in Good Will Hunting. But, as only makes sense, he just keeps getting better. I think he is a better actor today than he was. And I think we're going to see that in The Odyssey. I think he's a better actor today than when he did Good Will Hunting, because I believe he's constantly improving and constantly getting better. So I'll actually say that I think his performance in The Martian is even a little bit better than his performance in Good Will Hunting, because he was so much older when he did The Martian, and he's had so many more years to get better and better as an actor. So yeah, I'll say that. I wouldn't die on that hill, but that's kind of my guess. Let's see here. How to D&D writes, do you think Star Trek needs to take a lesson from The Martian where problem solving wins the day? No, it has nothing to do with Star Trek. I think every franchise, every storyteller, I think Batman, I think everything can benefit from better problem solving. I think there's a lot of that I think there's a lot of problem solving, by the way, in like Star Trek, Strange New Worlds. Star Trek Strange New Worlds is a great show. Not everything today Star Trek does is great, but Strange New Worlds is a great show. But I don't think it has nothing to do with Star Trek. I think every franchise can benefit from implementing more higher level problem solving. You know, you go back and look at even things like the old medical shows. House was great because the whole thing about House is that show was House gets presented with a problem at the beginning of the episode and spends all the entire show trying to figure out that problem, right? So I do think there's a lot of IPs and franchises and shows that have done it well. And I think every franchise can benefit from that. I think Star Trek does do it, but I think they could do it more. All right. Let's see here. Greg Scott Bailey says, was there anything from the book they didn't put in that you would have loved to have seen? I can't think of anything with this one. Unlike Project Hail Mary, I never read the book, The Martian. prior to it coming out. Watching The Martian was my first exposure to the story. Now, that's not the case with Project Hail Mary, which is one that I've already read several times actually already. But I never actually read The Martian prior to watching the movie. Good question, though. Let's see here. Johnny writes, what Matt Damon mentally deals with runs as to what Leonardo DiCaprio physically deals with The Revenant. Do you agree? Well, I mean, yes, but only to the degree that in every movie, every good story, all have that moment where the hero has to face and hits walls. Like, you've heard the old adage, right? Like, every movie is basically boy meets girl, boy loses girl, boy gets girl back, right? That's kind of the same thing with Leonardo DiCaprio in Revenant, is that our main character has a situation, runs into serious problem, overcomes the problem, right? Boy meets girl, boy loses girl, boy gets girl back. So I would say, yes, I agree, but I also don't think that that's unique to The Martian and The Revenant. Some stories do it really great, like these ones. Some stories don't do it as great, like a couple of other I can mention. Let's see here. Dankin writes, do you think Ryan Gosling will be nominated for Best Actor for Project Hail Mary? It would be foolish to even guess. We haven't seen his performance in Project Hail Mary. I mean, listen, Ryan Gosling is an Academy caliber actor. But you know, there's many Oscar caliber actors and there's only 5 nomination spots. So it would be pure folly on my part right now to guess whether or not he'll get nominated, because I mean, I don't even know if he does a good job or not. That's reality right now. I don't even know if he does a good job in the movie or not. I'm assuming he will, but I just don't know because we just haven't seen it yet. So I can't guess as to his ability to get nominated when I haven't seen the performance yet. Let's see. Dylan writes, I think Matt Damon was bad casting for Mark Watney from the book, but perfect casting for Watney from the movie. You know what? Here's the funny thing. You are not the first person I've heard say that. You're not the first person I've heard say. Again, as somebody who didn't read the book prior to seeing the movie, I had no dog in that hunt, right? Seeing Mark on screen was my first exposure to Mark Watney, and it was Matt Damon. So always to me, Matt Damon is Mark Watney. But I have heard from other people, and I remember prior to the movie coming out, some people complaining that he's not right for the role. He's not right for the role. He's not right for the role. Well, this kind of goes to something that I say all the time, that everybody hates it when I say it, but that's okay because it's often lonely being right, which is, many of you have heard me say this many times before, the number one job of a filmmaker and storytellers is to make the best story possible, make the best movie possible, not to adhere to the source material as close as you can. Everybody hates it when I say it, but it's always been proven right. Like, of course you want to stick to the story when you can, but I mean, the page is the page, the screen is the screen. And the filmmakers behind The Martian, they just knew that Matt Damon was the guy to manifest the character they were trying to put on screen. And again, maybe you're right, Dylan, and all the people at the time were right, saying he doesn't really fit the way Mark Watney is described in the book. Maybe that's true, but who cares? The job, what Ridley Scott and the filmmakers are trying to do is make the best movie possible. And they know in their mind's eye how they want Mark to come across on screen and what will fit best into the flow of the movie. And they went with him. This is a great example about why that is always the right approach. Doesn't mean you can't try to follow along with what's in the source material, but only do it when it serves the movie. If there's something in the source material that doesn't serve your mission in the movie, don't do it. Change it, discard it, alter it a little bit, whatever. But yeah, following the source material is not the be all end all. Making the best movie possible is the be all end all. And this right here is a perfect example of why that is the case. Let's see here. I'm mainly, by the way, I see a lot of questions around. I mainly want to try to stick to things that are about project or about The Martian. Let's see. Toll's right. Have you guys tried to get Andy Weir to be a guest on the show? I don't do guests on my show. I stopped doing that ages ago when I realized it was pointless. Let's see. Doc Sasquatch is writing, are you a disco fan, John? How would you fare with only the Captain's music catalog? I think, no, I am not a disco fan, as a matter of fact. That said, I do love me some ABBA, oddly enough. Anyway, so I am not a disco fan, but I have a feeling if that's all I had, I'd probably get used to it. All right. I'll take 3 more questions and I'm going to end things off. Jake's writing, best scene of the film. You know what I think it is? And this is a cheat because it's 2 different scenes, but they connect. And I'm surprised I didn't bring this up earlier, but when he walks into his makeshift farm after days and days and days and weeks, and he looks down and he sees that little green sprout coming out of the ground. He says, hello. That such a simple moment, but it was a miracle. Like it was a miracle. And it was that little green shoot of leaf coming out of the ground represented hope. It represented hope. Like, if you're him in that moment, you're like, oh my God, I may actually survive this. Then fast forward to the end of the movie when he's getting ready to go in and teach his class and he looks down and he sees an almost identical looking little shoot coming out of the ground. That was very moving to me. I think it's a very nondescript scene. Nothing really happens. It's just a guy standing there looking down. But if I really think about it, that might be the best scene of the movie because it's the first moment where you really felt hope. And that's a powerful thing, man. It's a really powerful thing. Okay. Let's see here. Spider-Fan writes, where does this movie, speaking of The Martian, rank amongst Scott's filmography? Alien, Gladiator, Blade Runner. I'm not a fan of Blade Runner. That's the one. There are 2 movies that really separate me from the rest of my peers in the movie punditry space. I'm not a fan of the original Blade Runner. Sorry. I've always wanted to be because I know that's the cool thing. And it's an all-time Hallmark sci-fi film. I wish I loved it. I really do, but I'm not a fan of the original Blade Runner. And the other one that really separates for people, I don't think the original Halloween is very good. It's a horror masterpiece and like iconic of all time. And I just don't think it's a very good horror film, but that's just me. I think I would go. I think I'll still say Gladiator is his best film. I mean, yeah, I think Gladiator is his best film. So but I think I would put The Martian right after Gladiator. I've never really thought about it. I'm glad you asked because I've never really thought about it, but I think, I think I will go Gladiator, and then where would I put Project Hail Mary, or where would I put The Martian? I think I will put it right after Gladiator. I think I've got as my number 2. All right, last one I'll take today. Let's see here. Oh, this is a good one. Jake is asking, a standout performance of The Martian aside from Matt. It comes down to 2. I mean, look, again, everybody in the crew was fantastic. Everybody in Nassau was fantastic. Sean Bean was incredible. I think it comes down to 2 characters, though, and that's Jeff Daniels and Chiwetel Ejiofor as Vincent. I think those are the ones. I mean, Donald Glover had a great moment. Mackenzie Davis had a great moment. Like, there's this great scene where Mackenzie Davis and Chiwetel Ejiofor are sitting at the monitor, and they just told, I can't remember exactly what they just told Matt Damon, and they get the message back, like, are you fucking serious? And Chiwetel Ejiofor is like, do you think he made it as, are you fucking serious? Or do you think he means it as, are you fucking serious? And Mackenzie Davis is like, I think it's the second one. And Chiwetel, no, it could be the first one. And then Mackenzie's like, yeah, it could be the first one. It's kind of like that. I love that scene. I absolutely love that scene. I think it's absolutely incredible. Anyway, guys, that will wrap up. I went a little bit longer than I intended tonight, but that's okay. That will wrap up this meeting of Movie Club. Thank you so much for being here and joining me tonight and sending in the questions. Let me know if you enjoyed this and if we should do more or whether we should put Movie Club back to bed. I did have fun doing it. Of course, we are going to do at least one more, but it's going to be kind of a different kind of Movie Club because we're talking about a movie that is coming up next Tuesday at 5 p.m. We're going to be talking about the book of Project Hail Mary. And we're going to be talking about it in depth and, with all the details and stuff like that. And then talking about what we're looking for to how it's going to translate to the movie. What parts do we think will make it into the movie? They obviously can't put everything in the book in the movie because then it would be a 7-hour movie. So which parts do we think they're going to leave out? I'm looking forward to doing that. So yeah, guys, let me know what you guys thought. Leave it in the comments. And yeah. So guys, that will wrap us up for tonight. Do me a favor. Make sure you guys come and join us tomorrow for the next installment of the John Campea Show. We'll look forward to seeing you then. And yeah, that'll wrap it up for me for tonight, guys. Thanks a lot for being here. My name's John Campea. And until next time, my friends, bye-bye.